Hello, this is Gideon Emery, a.k.a. Balthier from Final Fantasy XII, telling you you're listening to the Raw Dogs podcast. And from this leading man, may you be the leading man in your own lives. Tune in, enjoy, farewell.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Raw Dogs. We are part of Hair the Dogcast, and we're your favorite podcast about Final Fantasy IX and why Vivi's wonderful, and there's some beer talk as well in there sometimes. This is a special episode for many reasons. This is a special episode because this is our 75th Raw Dogs that we have recorded, and a special episode because we're covering one of the greatest games of all time, debatably, by some people, but also we're joined by a good friend of mine. My name is Brad, and our special guest today is the wonderful Spike Vegeta. Spike, how are you doing today?
Yo, Brad, thank you so much for having me, buddy. I am excited to be here and talk about it. You are right. It is one of the greatest video games of all time. Final Fantasy IX. I'm not just saying that because I have nostalgia for it, but I genuinely think it's a fantastically made video game, and I'm excited to talk about it.
When was the last time you played this game specifically?
So I actually we're still recording here in the year of 2022. And earlier this year, I had a bunch of different like little speedrun projects that I was never really happy with my final time on that I went back to. And one of those was actually Final Fantasy IX. So I went back and I did speedruns of the PC, the kind of HD, quote unquote HD version of the game that they re-released. And, yeah, and I got my goal time in. It was like 7 hours, 37 minutes. So, you know, a nice long RPG with a lot of text and stuff. But yeah, so I just recently did a whole new 2 month long grind of the game. And I still love the game so much. So yeah, I guess it's only been about 4 or 5 months since I played it.
Final Fantasy IX is one of those games that has always kind of loomed large for me. It's one that I remember playing briefly back when it came out on the PlayStation 1, but my brother definitely was the guy playing this game, and I was the little brother happily watching a story I wasn't comprehending. But I actually had never completed this game until this year. And
oh, wow.
Yes, and part of my experience might be shaded a little bit because I am playing on, like you said, the HD port, which I don't know if the PC one has all of those like battle boosting ways to make the game a little better, more modern.
Yes.
Not better, but more modern anyways.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does. It's that it's that same version, that re-release of it that I guess Square had kind of gotten onto doing that with all of their re-releases of like their classic 90s 3D RPGs where they say, okay, there's a way to speed it up. There's a way to give yourself all the stats in the world. All the little boosters they give you. Yeah. So I've played that version with it.
Did you play it originally back on the PS1 though as well?
Yes. Yeah, it's actually, so growing up, that everybody has their own like first video games. My first ever RPG was Super Mario RPG. It was a very weird concept of like what it was. That's yours as well?
Not mine, but it is a classic RPG. That is a good introductory RPG.
Yes. It was a very like weird transition period. The second RPG I ever played was Final Fantasy IX. I finally was like, you know what? Let's give Final Fantasy games a try. I remember growing up as, a teenager back then, where all of my friends were just like, Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VIII, these like massive video games on the playground. So I got in kind of late at 9, which was funny at a time where Square put so much love and care into this game. A lot of people felt like it kind of moved on to like, all right, it was all about the PlayStation 2. And so it almost feels like what more people on the playground had nostalgia for was like FF7, 8, and then they moved on to 10 with the PS2. So, for me, 9 was what I had everything to base off of it. But you know what? I'll stand by. I believe it's Hironobu Sakaguchi, kind of the original creator of Final Fantasy. He says this was his favorite Final Fantasy, actually. So, I feel a little more justified in saying I think this game is fantastic. Even if I've gone back and played a bunch of other Final Fantasy since then, it's still certainly one of my favorites, up there with 10. I think it's great.
The Final Fantasy series, it is the big name in RPGs, and those that are maybe hardcore would say that they're a little easier, a little more geared towards the every person. I don't think that having obtuse systems necessarily makes a game better, because Final Fantasy games, they have such strengths to them story-wise. The gameplay, it's refined. They're a big budget product. And getting back to kind of RPG experience, I was, like I mentioned, the little brother. I watched my brother play Final Fantasy VI, a little bit on the Super Nintendo. I played some Mario RPG because that was... I could comprehend what was happening there.
Yeah.
Seeing Chrono Trigger, I was like, what is time travel?
It got very existential and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. You can't really necessarily, at like those young age, really appreciate what some of the characters are going through. Now, as a grown man, when I watch Vivi struggle with existence, I tear up. It's not easy.
God.
But Final Fantasy VII was the one that I played first and remember having the strongest feelings for. I remember being very excited for FF8 to come along and being quite turned off by a lot of the gameplay systems. In retrospect, I do appreciate that they were trying something a little more complicated, but FF9 is this weird spot where it is the end of the PS1. This game was released, I want to say, after the PS2 had come out. When it landed in America, it was right at the cusp of the next generation. So it is a bit of a swan song. Final Fantasy IX, this released July 7th in the year 2000 in Japan, November 13th here in America. We have had some ports since then. The first port came in 2016 for the iOS Android. And that is probably many people's first way they play the game. That has updated HD movies, character models, an autosave feature, and like we mentioned, those 4 battle boosters, which that's something you're going to get in all like modern remasters and remakes of these games. That's the way, like if you get it on the Switch, you'll have the option. And that's how I did it with 8. And I know they have it with 12 as well, where you can just like speed up gameplay, which I can see the argument. But Brad, you played this on the Switch, and you had the options to do battle boosters and high speed, so it's not the same experience. I understand that, but also this game might be a little tedious with all of the random battles and the slow zoom in. But the iOS introduced some of that, and the other ports that we're seeing for like the Windows, PS4, Switch, Xbox One, a lot of those are just the exact same iOS port, which is controversial to some people, but I think it's an okay way to play the game though on modern consoles.
No, yeah, I definitely think like I think it's a better way to consume the game overall. Like purists will probably tell you, no, you got to play the PlayStation 1 version, but I like all the boosters being there. I think there was a point in the mid 2000s where Square realized we can tell these vast, expansive stories that go across all these different continents that you travel between, seeing hundreds of different characters, how they interact. But they eventually realized, wait, we can also let people on second playthroughs skip cutscenes. Like just get through some of the plot a little bit faster. Sometimes you want to remember these moments. Sometimes you're trying to get to those moments a little sooner, get back to the gameplay, whatever it needs to be. So they realized they could skip cutscenes with like Kingdom Hearts 2, obviously a game that's near and dear to my heart. And so with like modern, like this HD remake of FF9, you can skip the movies, you can skip the FMVs within them. There's lots of, those slow battle cameras as you spawn in. You can turn those off completely and you jump right into the encounter a lot faster. If you even just want to say, hey, you know what? I want no encounters until, for the next little stretch of time. You can just turn that off if you want to. I think it makes sense with modern quality of life stuff that is a thing in Final Fantasy IX HD.
Yeah, I would like to say that I never used the 9,999 feature,
Yep.
But I would lie. I would be lying to you. Battle Assistance and the other one, which is 9999, those will break the game for you in a way that I think is acceptable, because I am there primarily to experience the story and have a perspective, and I think that's an okay thing. You had mentioned the wonderful Sakaguchi, Hironobu Sakaguchi. He is one of the big forefathers of Final Fantasy. He's been there since the beginning. For this game, there were two things going on in his life. He took the entire crew to Hawaii because he likes Hawaii, so he's like, we must start making things in Hawaii. There's no real benefit other than you're in Hawaii. But he was making this concurrently with Final Fantasy The Spirits Within.
Yep.
Which I am dying to do a rewatch of that, because something that bombed so horribly that it almost destroyed one of the greatest video game companies existing is fascinating to me.
So I never looked much into, obviously I know of Spirits Within back when it came out and everything. Didn't it practically almost bankrupt them, and FF10 saved them or something? It was a really bad investment that did not work out.
Squaresoft lost about $86 million on the endeavor. That is the reason Squaresoft became Square Enix. They had to do a merger to survive.
That's what it was.
That's what it was. And after that happened, Sakaguchi spent 3 years kind of depressed, not doing anything. There was an agreement that his name would be kept on as executive producer for a while, but he didn't make anything until he started Mistwalker Systems. And then I forget what it was, Lost Odyssey or something came out in 2006. Wow. And that was his first time back. But like you said, Sakaguchi mentioned that this is his favorite Final Fantasy. This is the closest to his ideal view of what this game, what Final Fantasy should be. Now, they originally were thinking this would be a Gaiden entry in the series and not a full-fledged numerical entry, because with the popularity of 7 and 8, they were afraid if they went knights and fantasy instead of sci-fi that they would alienate some people. So this was actually considered kind of controversial at the time. But to me, I mean, Final Fantasy it's got fantasy in the name, you know?
Right. It always felt very jarring, the two different sides of it. And I remember, again, all those same friends that I had back on the playground who, I'm saying, oh, I love Final Fantasy IX. They were like, it all looks stupid. They look like little kids. All of a sudden they're back shorter. They don't look emo. They're not big Buster Swords, Cloud and Squall and all these characters. And I was like, it really is fascinating going from 7 and 8, where 9 is very much a return to the original part. Not that there's anything wrong. I like FF7 as well. But,
sure.
All of a sudden it looks like Final Fantasy 6 again in 3D. So yeah, it was very interesting, different take on it.
Yeah, Zidane is, and as I'm going forward, I will say Zidane. In my mind, I read Zidane, but I've heard it is officially Zidane. Yeah. But he is, in contrast to, Squall, who was, I'm upset and don't want to talk with people. I think Cloud has gotten a bad rap in the, if you go back and play the game, Cloud's got a lot more sassiness to him than people give him credit for. But Zidane, he is a boisterous character. He is a fun character. He is a passionate character, and he's very vocal, which was definitely a different take. But I think it's also important to mention, you can still be silly, fun, and loud, and as Zidane proves, deeply depressed at times.
Yes.
This game does handle those big concepts very well. Sakaguchi mentioned following the death of his mother, he was just going through things, thinking about death, and he says it's definitely in the spirit of the game. Development of this game began in July 1998, in parallel with Final Fantasy VIII. We mentioned Hawaii. This was kind of a swan song for a lot of the longtime Final Fantasy creators. This had Nobuo Uematsu, this had Sakaguchi, and it's great that a lot of the development team has been around for such a long time. The director of this game, Hiroyuki Ito, I think he is probably the most criminally underrated, not talked about member of Final Fantasy. He created the active time battle system. He was the event planner for Chrono Trigger. He designed the battle system for Tactics, which is another big favorite of mine.
Yeah, beloved.
Battle system designer for 8, and he directed and did most of the design and battles for FF12. Hiroyuki Ito is a lot of driving the gameplay for these games, so I think he doesn't get enough love when they talk about, all the big names. Nomura makes some nice belts, and I appreciate Nomura's character design.
His belt game is untouched, let me tell you.
This character's great, but what about more belts?
Right.
Yeah, and there is a fair number of belts in this game as well, but and I think maybe Square realized, because we had mentioned this was potentially going to be a Gaiden game, but if you slap a number on this puppy, you're going to sell a few more copies.
Yep.
So might as well do it. They were holding off on announcing this for a while, which is odd to me. They waited until like 5 months until the game came out to announce it, and they announced 10 and 11 at the same time, which, the PlayStation 1 is at the end of its cycle, and you're gearing for the next thing, and I think I don't know. I'm excited for 10. I want to see this beautiful guy with the, what is it, like a Farrah Fawcett, Ellen DeGeneres hair, whatever Tidus has. Zack and Cody is so last week, Zidane, sorry. It features the 4 fiends. It features the crystals. Have you played many since then? Some of the OG Final Fantasies.
Yeah. So after FF9, the next one I played was actually FF1. So I went right back. I was like, oh, that's the origins. That's where the 4 fiends and the 4 crystals, where they come from, and that's part of Final Fantasy IX. That's so funny. For anyone who's like me, if this was your first Final Fantasy, because there are references all over this game to FF1 through 8, just all up and down the game, that obviously if it's your first game like me, all that went over my head. I was like, oh, who's this Sid guy? Must be a unique character that doesn't show up in any other Final Fantasy game. There's a bit in the credits or in the ending sequence, the final scene, where he makes reference to as no cloud, as no squall would do. You're like, wow, they're hitting it right close to home right there with FF7.
As no Ketchi would be.
Yes.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Hitting the nail on the head.
Yeah, so the game had references all over FF1 through it. So you could tell, definitely for a lot of the creators involved, that this was very much a love letter to fans of the series up to that point, but it's not the type of media that just lives on it's a bunch of nostalgia. Oh, I like that it was referencing that sort of stuff here and there. It also stands on its own as a fantastic video game.
Yeah, that's a tricky line to walk. Immediately, I think it's something like Doctor Who, where they will pepper in references to everything for those that want to get excited about that stuff. And then they also just directly reference Star Wars Episode 1. They directly quoted at the end. Now, I was sitting there, I was like, wait a second, did they change this dialogue for this HD remaster? Because at least they didn't say, now this is pod racing or something. That
Right. And another thing you brought up right there is man, they announced this 4 months before the game came out. By the way, that's how all video games should be. Don't tell me about them till they are about to be. I want to know about it and then pre-order it. I love any sort of release schedule with games like that. And man, we were lucky kids in the 90s. I don't want to act like we had it better than, modern video game players. But man, it was nice being like, oh, a Final Fantasy game came out, and in a year, you're going to get another Final Fantasy game. I was a big fan of Donkey Kong Country. Oh, you liked that in 1994? 1995, here's DKC 2. 1996, here's DKC 3. We got games left and right. And Square was just absolutely in the 90s. They were cranking out bangers, dude.
Yeah.
3-4 games a year that still, I think, hold up to today as great gold standards of RPGs in the 90s. Just incredible stuff that company cranked out.
I think that was one of those sweet times where the PlayStation 1, designing games for that and the Super Nintendo, it's inexpensive enough where you can afford to have some creativity and some risk taking. Whereas now, when you're putting the money to make Final Fantasy 16,
yes,
you have an investment. You have years and millions of dollars instead of we have 10 people and this guy says something might be fun to try and whatever, we don't care. It was a golden era. You could even go further back, and people, when they were playing things in the Nintendo, they didn't know when a game was coming out. Nope. It would just show up in a store, which is exciting, but also I'd prefer to have like a 2 or 3 month excitement period.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it wasn't for having Nintendo Power, you truly had no idea until you went to the store like, oh, what's this Legend of Zelda thing sitting on the shelf? Let's give it a try. Golly. Yeah. How do games get found?
And risky. You don't know if a game's going to be good when you buy them back then.
All right.
And, contrast that again to today. Elder Scrolls 6. They showed the title, so the logo, great font, and we haven't heard anything in probably 4 years since they did that. So
Metroid Prime 4.
Oh no.
Are we still waiting on Silk Song? I've lost track of that.
No, Silk Song is coming out this year. Or not this year, next year, like by Q2, they announced.
Okay.
Allegedly. And it's coming to Game Pass day 1, so that'll be exciting.
Oh, that's sick, actually.
Yeah, I played Hollow Knight for the first time this year, so I haven't been waiting as long.
I played it like 3 years ago for the first time, and that game's fantastic. So I at least was lucky enough that I found I'm the same as my wife, where we like to just binge things. Be like, oh, this new show just came out. Let all the episodes air, then we'll go watch it. So it's sort of the same thing with Hollow Knight, right? Where I at least I had not played it until 3 years ago. You said you just recently played it, and that's like, okay. Now, Silk Song in 6 months. That sounds great. All right, think about the people who played it when it came out. Like, oh my God, we're waiting forever.
There's some people that are very angry at me for having it that easy. At the height of production, there's about 300 people working on this game. Many elements were in Sakaguchi's first draft, including Vivi, Tantalus, and the entire first act. We mentioned Hiroyuki Ito. The active time battle system was created for Final Fantasy IV and was inspired by Formula One racing. Because for the first time, Ferraris used semi-automatic transmission, and that was the inspiration for having because the active time battle system, I'm not necessarily a giant fan of it. I like to always slow it down to wait as much as possible, because I like to take my time and think things through. But the active time battle system keeps you on your toes. You need to make decisions a little faster. I was surprised to hear that's the inspiration.
I had never actually heard that, because I feel like I'm probably one of the old boys who still likes the active time, but like, again, I speedrun Final Fantasy 9, so maybe I'm like extremely used to it. But I had never heard.
You're an odd case, Spike. You're an odd case, Spike. You play games fast.
I try, right, which is funny because I'm playing this system that like inherently kind of slows it down. I don't know. I think like well done ATB or turn-based stuff can actually be really exciting. I feel like you can actually keep the pace of it up really good. Final Fantasy 9 is a little too slow-paced at times, but that's fine. That's fine. I love the game, but I had to knock it there.
I know you mentioned 10 is one of your favorites, and I absolutely adore 10's system of you just see where, like, even when you choose a different attack and it drops down, like, the order of operations on the top where you can see. I could just look at that screen all day. Yeah. And I enjoy the sphere grid too much.
Oh my God. I know it's the Final Fantasy 9 episode, but like the sphere grid, I just played FF10 myself this year for the first time. And nice. Both those systems you just talked about, the sphere grid, I would find myself just looking at the sphere grid and getting excited about what was coming down the pipeline for like, Tidus in like 5 more levels. I'm going to be able to teach him that +4 strength node. That's pretty sick. Okay, cool. Oh, I'm working towards zombie attack here with Auron. Okay. And like you said, actually seeing the battle order of, okay, it's going to be Tidus, then it's going to be Waka, and then it's the boss, and I'm going to get 2 more Tiduses. And then take that on top of when you learn haste or like haste 2 or anything, and you get to teach yourself that, and you watch your characters spot in the turn order, just go brah, and just like 5 instances of Tidus right there. God, it's so cool. I love it. But Final Fantasy 9, it's great.
Yeah, Final Fantasy X is good for building up that anticipation because that's how you're able to go forward. I guess let's talk about the battle system here a little bit. Yeah. Not just the active time part, but the way you learn abilities, the equipment system, jobs. So Final Fantasy IX, you have characters that are well-defined. You have a character who is literally a little black mage. Like, yes. It would be weird if he had a rocket launcher. Now, if he had,
it'd be kind of sick,
a rocket,
but yeah.
If Vivi just showed up like bandoliers on there, just 8-pack of abs just sticking out.
Do you have a Glock? What is that? What are you doing?
I said, leave my friends alone. But the characters, they're well defined. Zidane is known for being a thief. So rather than having characters that can multi-class, that you can have Zidane also be a white mage, these characters are locked in. And this is something that doesn't happen in, by any means, every Final Fantasy game. And I think it's rarer that it does happen where a character is kind of guided down a specific path. And compared to the sphere grid, we were just talking about that, you can later in the game go down, different sections of the sphere grid and start multi-classing a little bit but even then you have to like kind of choose, this is just my subclass.
Yeah.
And FF9 is interesting in that it really just limits your characters. I do appreciate that, you have, I think something that is important is that you have 4 members in the party.
Yes.
And because this was something that they hadn't had for a while. Heck, maybe back to 6. I had never played 6, and that is a egregious thing to say. But you have 4 party members, so that encourages, you can risk having more specific classes with that.
Right. It was fun kind of seeing how like some classes would mix together. Like you've obviously got Steiner and Vivi, that if they're both in the party, Steiner could utilize magical based sword attacks, fire sword, ice sword, and the like. How they can kind of mix together right there. Yeah, very defined roles because we had just come from Final Fantasy 7 and 8, another big jump away, not just tonally and, like kind of going from sci-fi to more like fantasy-based stuff. Final Fantasy 9 also decided to give very defined roles compared to FF 7 and 8, where it was the materia system and whatnot, or the junction system, where you could kind of make all the characters any sort of jack of all trades that you wanted them to be.
Yeah.
So.
And at least with the materia system in 7, I feel like it was kind of simple. Materia levels up. Materia, you drop that on Barrett or Aerith, and they can use whatever spells you put on there. This, though, not only are you kind of limited to your special abilities, because Zidane has Steel and Dagger has Summon. Dagger, Garnet, or Sarah, whatever you want to call her, has Summon. Yeah. But then also you learn abilities through equipment, which is a system that I really do like.
Yes.
Yeah, so you have, it encourages you to try new weapons and new armor. In this, you do have, like hats, regular armor, accessories. You equip many things instead of like 8, where you have one weapon and you have to read weird magazines to upgrade them by playing cards with that are turned out of monsters. I still don't understand what the fuck is going on in 8.
I've still got to play. I played like half of 8. It tried some stuff. There are a lot of people out there say FF8's one of their favorites. But yeah, they definitely were just, let's experiment as much as possible with that combat system and like how you learn all your skills and everything. I'm like you. And again, like I'm going back to my nostalgia of FF9, where I loved that it encouraged me to use different gear than just whichever one made the number the biggest. That like, I'm going to rock this somewhat weaker sword with Steiner for a while because I want to learn this ability on him. And, it's always fun just saying like, okay, anything that fills up a bar is inherently very satisfying as a gamer and a lot of other people in general. We're like, hey, everybody's got these 48 different abilities that I can learn off of all this different gear throughout the game. That was more exciting than whatever just made the numbers go up. And there's so much to all the different gear in the Final Fantasy IX compared to any of the other Final Fantasies, where a lot of times there was like, maybe there was an exciting piece of armor. There was a lot more than just like a weapon, an armor piece, and an accessory. This game had weapon, armor, hat gear, accessories, arm gear it would have for all of them. And you have all of your characters set up with 5 different sets the entire time. Every time you found a shop, it was like Christmas Day, getting to see what all these different things were going to teach you. All the little hidden things where like some of them will raise your elemental spell of like, like make your ice attack a little bit stronger or something like that. When you get into it like from a speed run like I did, you learn so many little nuances about so many pieces of gear that they threw into the game, and they didn't try to like shove it in your face too much. But it makes it very exciting to not just buy stuff, but find little loot in dungeons and see, okay, what is this going to get me?
It's an important part of RPGs when you have to equip, you throw on this sword, which isn't your strongest sword. You have to reach a certain number of AP to learn this ability, because you have to not only wear this armor or, weapon for a while, but after you reach 20 AP, 300 AP, if it's something big, these different numbers, then you permanently can learn the ability and then equip it and use it. And making individual battles exciting and watching your characters grow is something that is so important for random battles, because otherwise all random battles can do, and some of it happens later on in the game, where there is a narrative thrust that is happening and you're excited and you just have to fight, 10 more weird ghosts or something.
Yeah.
And it does take you out, but that's seeing your characters grow is such an integral part of what's going on in role-playing games. So absolutely. I really do, as far as the Final Fantasy series in general, really appreciate the way that this battle system kind of flows. To me, I really enjoy it.
I think my biggest, and this is going to sound like a speedrunner complaint, and then it's like, oh, you just want the games to move faster. But probably one of the only problems with Final Fantasy IX as a combat system, I would say, compared to like 7 or 8. 7, you go back and play it, the ATB bar. I said that like bar. It fills up genuinely pretty fast, and you're like going into the next action and you're making that next play so fast. FF9, I would almost recommend to people, crank that sucker to like maximum speed at all times, to just let it fill up a little sooner, but put it on like ATB wait as opposed to active, so you can like sit in sub menus and like make your decisions a little, at your own pace that you want to go. Because man, those bars move slowly otherwise. But yeah, other than that though, no, I am a big fan of this combat system, obviously, for many, many reasons. Part of why I run it, so.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I'm so excited to talk with you specifically is because you run this game, and you probably have some insights onto some systems. Now, the trance system is mostly not liked from people that
I guess that's the other part that isn't good, yeah.
Is there a purpose for it with speedrunning?
So for the most part, like, it is a very random like aspect of the game that you're having to work around. You have to kind of memorize. First of all, unlike 5, 7, 8, let's once again rear back to what those games were doing. FF7, you get hit like 4 times on one of your characters, they can use another limit. So if you really liked limits, you could use those over and over again. FF8, they made it even easier to use your limits, as you could just once you get into like yellow bar, like critical health, it makes it more and more likely that those will just show up constantly. And you can just use them over and over and over again. If you watch the speedrun for FF8, they intentionally will get their characters into crit health and just use that for boss fights over and over and over again. FF9, I guess they decided that was too strong. We don't want them to just have access to those all the time. So they made it this bar that has to fill up, that has a random amount that it will fill every time a character is hit. It's not like a set you can plan, all right, get my character hit 4, 5, 10 times, it's going to do it. It'll add a random number between like 0 and 16. It'll be based on your spirit stat, which is a stat that you might not know exactly what that does throughout the run. It handles a lot of weird little aspects of the game. But so you could get, Zidane could get hit, and then the bar doesn't fill up at all, which is obviously pretty unsatisfying to a lot of people. But I guess at the time they really didn't want limits to be abused in any way. The balance to it is you can actually stay in your limits, your limit form, as opposed to it being one attack for a longer period of time. So sometimes you can get off 3, even 4 actions while you're in this, like, basically as a kid, for all intents and purposes, let's face it, it was Super Saiyan state.
If we want to talk about,
stay there.
If we want to talk about heroes with tails from another planet that are sent to sow discord, and I mean, we could talk about Dragon Ball Z another time.
It was literally just Goku. Like at the end of the game, I was like, wait, he's from space. He has a tail. He was supposed to fuck shit up. Wait
if Raditz had a silver wig and a thong, he would be Kuja.
Done, dude. He's already in a thong. Let's face it. Thong.
That would be Raditz. There's no Vegeta though, actually, in this game.
Right? It's got that. I was like, this is Raditz. This is Raditz if he meant more to the plot.
Yeah, and you mentioned Final Fantasy 1. When you went back and played that, the bad guy is Garland. Like right away, you're running into references that come back to this game. Some of the other development team, real quick, that matters. Produced by Shinji Hashimoto. He is, of course, the famed elevator dude from Kingdom Hearts.
Hell yeah, my gamer.
My dude. Art director Hideo Minaba. They did the character design for all of the main ones. Art director for 12 as well. And there was some image illustration from Yoshitaka Amano, but he came in after the characters were already kind of initially designed. He is, of course, I wish Dylan was here. Dylan, unfortunately, couldn't be here for this episode today for a family thing, but he does because Dylan's a big artist. Dylan would know specifically, but like that real like loose line work and watercolor painting aesthetic.
Yep. God, it's always so cool just looking back at those.
There's also just one person that looms large over this game, and that's Nobuo Uematsu.
Yep.
This is the last game whose music was solely composed by him. After this, he took a break. So composers have such a weird spot with video games. You'll have something. I love Halo, so I think about Halo. Halo is made by a team of so many people, then it's just like, oh, and this one composer did the music.
Right.
And this guy just came in and he just laid down some Gregorian chants.
One guy did the whole thing. And then you see the credits for a video game and it's just like, it's scrolling for half an hour and you're like, how did one person? This is such a big video game. This is not like, I don't know, a 15 level platformer from the mid 90s. This is a 40-hour RPG, and Uematsu cranked out bangers left and right. How did he do all this?
Yeah, it's mind-boggling to this day. This guy's still making music, but Hiroyuki Ito initially asked him for 8 character tracks, a battle track, a danger-evoking piece, and like 10 other miscellaneous tracks. And Uematsu said, "Hold my beer." Spent a year composing and produced around 160 pieces of music for this game. 140 appear in the game. He was living in Hawaii as well and realized this is 100% not conducive to this game. It's just all, island music. But instead, he traveled to Europe to find some inspiration because it's very European, classic fantasy, Renaissance-looking game. Despite Steiner not wearing anything covering his ankles, he is a knight. just needs that breathability down there. But
Yep.
aimed for a simple and warm atmosphere and incorporated uncommon instruments like the kazoo and the dulcimer, which I appreciate that.
Yep.
Like we mentioned, this came out in the 2000s. There was a partnership with Coca-Cola, which is funny to me.
Oh, yeah, the old Coca-Cola commercials for this dude.
Zidane is running through Alexandria chasing a magical Coca-Cola cap, and Vivi joins him, Dagger joins him, and everyone that is in the area of the Coca-Cola cap turns into a happy festival-loving Coke person. And it's just strange to me, that cross-promotion that is more common these days. It'd be like, Zidane on a Gamer Fuel or something.
Yeah, right. But like at the time, it's funny thinking back where I remember another big Square RPG. Like they really were. They were the rock stars of video games in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Could do nothing wrong.
Really, they truly could not. I remember watching an episode of, at the time, would have been WWF Raw. Raw is War.
Real Raw.
And Chrono Cross, another one of my favorite RPGs of all time. It was coming out earlier that year. And they were like, let's show you guys a trailer. Like Jim Ross is like kicking over. Show you guys the trailer for the new Square title, Chrono Cross. And it showed the trailer for it. And I was like, what? They're even like referencing it on Raw? Like they were truly rock stars at that time.
Yeah, I feel like Final Fantasy IX probably suffered a little bit too because it wasn't given. I mean, they had the Coca-Cola promotion, but they only had like a small period of time after it was announced to get things out. Whereas I remember those big, just full page FF7 ads.
Yep.
It's not a movie. Also, what you're showing is not a game; it's an FMV. But we're happy for you. Yeah, this game came out. It sold 2.65 million copies in Japan by the end of 2000. By March of 2016, it hit 5.5 million and never sold as many copies at 7 or 8 due to its odd placement, but it is a 10th best-selling Final Fantasy game, which kind of breaks my heart a little bit.
Really? It's not even in the top half of the main series titles. I'm like thinking, they're like, man, 9 Final Fantasies outsold this? Holy shit.
Including Final Fantasy X-2, which is a weird fact to me.
Oh, no. I'm so sad.
Have you played that one?
I have not played it. I played FF10 earlier this year. At some point, I will play 10-2. I just on principle, I'm sad that 10-2 outsold 9. 10's great. 10's fantastic, but come on.
I'm dying to do a 10-2 replay. I think there's probably a lot going on in that battle system I didn't appreciate my first time through. I think it's almost like a forerunner to 13 a little bit in that you can... I don't know. There's a class system. I don't know how these dress spheres work. It's a hard sell to me as a young teenage boy in South Dakota. Like, yo, check out these dress spheres. I said, I don't know, man. Like, I'm into girl power and stuff, but this is a weird sell to me.
Yeah, but you had to be a little bit into the Powerpuff Girls.
You got to be a little bit into them, which we all were. We all love Mojo Jojo.
I know. Once again, going back to speedrunners, because speedrunners, a lot of times we get addicted to stuff with like super complex battle systems. That's part of why we like FF9 is that there isn't like a simple way to go about running FF9. There's so many little nuances you have to understand about your 700 different little pieces of gear to how to perfectly set yourself up to beat these end game bosses when you're level like 22, And I know a lot of people will tell you some of their favorite Final Fantasy speedruns are actually the ones that are not nearly as popular games casually, and that includes actually FF10 too. A lot of people tell you it's actually one of the best speedruns. It's like 3.5 hours, so it's faster than your average Final Fantasy. But they said the combat system genuinely lends itself to very interesting scenarios. So, yeah. I look forward to your playthrough of it again.
Yeah, that game, I know that there is an absurd amount of side quests. So I imagine the difference between any percent run versus a 100% run could be quite vast because you can get through that game. I did this, I did that, I'm done. It's like Elden Ring speed runs. 2 bosses. Let's go to the final boss versus
all of them.
200 Sights of Grace later. Right. Love Elden Ring. Such a good game. But I can't talk about Elden Ring today.
I am doing an Elden Ring speedrun off this podcast. next couple days.
You're doing an Elden Ring
I'm actually
speedrun?
it's all bosses, what we were just talking about. Yeah. Because like you said, that game can be beaten in like 15 minutes if you like know how to go directly to the end of the game. It's kind of like Breath of the Wild. But I'm working on a run that for me takes like 14 hours. Beating all 165 bosses in that game in one sitting. Yeah, that'll be fun. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, there it is. There you go.
Yeah, I'm into punishment.
Yeah, it's going to hurt.
You know, there's chocobos, there's boats, there's airships. The Moogles are heavily featured, which I always do appreciate in my Final Fantasy games.
They got a whole mail system. They're adorable, dude.
The mail system, which is failing miserably.
Yes.
Because it relies on one person instead of the entire Moogle network.
I know. Even as a kid, I was like, why am I doing all this shit? What the hell?
Yeah. One thing that is a new thing introduced to the story exploration here is active time events, which I think is a great addition. When you're trying to tell a story with, so many different characters that need to have their own moments, you can't have just everybody surrounding, Walter White in Breaking Bad. You need to have other scenes as well for Jesse and Hank. So I do like you'll get, and they're optional, which is great.
Yes,
they're mostly optional, so it'll pop up. Do you want to see what the fuck Quina's doing? And generally, yes. Yeah. Generally, I am curious, but sometimes they've served different functions. But that's a new thing they introduced here. The original concept, you'd be able to press a button at any time to jump between characters for certain sections, kind of like Grand Theft Auto 5.
Oh, sure.
Which sounds odd and unwieldy for the PlayStation 1, but I'm sure that's why they didn't do it.
Brad, how did they make this game in a year? It's truly massive. Because like you said, like they found a way to say, you know what? We have such a massive story that we want to tell just with Zidane or whoever, whether you're controlling Vivi, Zidane, Garnet, whoever at the time. But then at any time you're like, oh, there's an an active time event. Let me click the select button. There's 5 things going on that you can just like go see, what's everyone else doing? This game, probably more than anything else, is known not even for its main game, for its side quests. They made it popular back in the late 90s, early 2000s to go to, I believe it was playonline.com.
You said the words.
I'm sorry. I owned the Prima strategy guide for Final Fantasy IX. I can't tell you. It's like anybody who owns this guide knows what it is. You flip to the next page. Would you like to know what is on this side quest? Make sure to go to playonline.com to find out today what's going on over there. And that's kind of, the ATEs are just the tip of the iceberg of like, there is a somewhat straight path you can go down in Final Fantasy IX, but it is expansive. All the shit that is in this game, all the little side quests you can go down, all the little just pieces of plot you can learn about all the different characters. It's truly incredible.
I think that there's probably just no banking system in this world because the amount of random spots of gil in every screen. Yeah. Whoops, I dropped 10,000 gil over here.
Yep, literally 10,000 gil. Just like, oh, that's just sitting on the floor right here. Sick,
and then
thanks.
There's a guy at the inn trying to like haggle over 80 gil. I'm like, dude, there's just 1,000 on the ground outside, man.
I don't need to work that hard for this. You can keep your money, man. Pay your bills, please.
You mentioned Play Online, so we'll talk about that briefly. Play Online is a horrible thing.
Yes.
So... it was originally envisioned as like an online hangout spot where you could go on there with your friends to like share things from games. And this was in the year 2000. Like this was, I mean, I could see them trying to get something like this together now, perhaps. Yeah. But when the first product you put out is a strategy guide. Now, I love strategy guides. I probably lean on them too much because, I know in like 7 or 8, you go to a new city, you look at the guide. Where is this item? Where's that? These enemies are weak to this. It takes a little bit of the kind of the exploration and the excitement out of it. But with FF9, you buy a strategy guide. You buy this thing, and it's like, oh, I want to see where this item is in this level. To add to your Stellazio collection, go to Play Online. There's another one in this area. Keyword Stella 6. And it's just a bunch of keywords. Yeah. And I've never been so offended by... I remember being very upset reading through this as a kid.
Yeah.
Because this is my brother's original one, but it says it's enhanced, and this isn't a bad thing, so that's... At least it's enhanced, I guess. But they originally envisioned this as a big online hangout spot, and it never made it to FF10. This was so poorly received.
God, 1 year later, like, not get rid of that shit, man.
You can actually get they did a modern re-release of the guides, and you can get an FF9 guide that doesn't have all the Play Online bullshit.
I wonder if it also fixed all the things that were wrong with it. My God.
What was wrong in there? Do you remember
there were just a lot
offhand?
of like, these are not correct values. This boss is not weak to this whatsoever. Yeah. And I know it comes off elitist, me saying this shit. Like, oh, I was just speedrunner. Speedrunners truly know everything about a game to like a scary degree. And I'm just like, you don't have to know, you don't have to tell me, all right, here's how you quick kill this boss or anything. Just don't give me the wrong facts, right? But yeah, even just something like you said, it's not like, oh, to actually know what the strategy is for this, go to playonline.com. That'd be great. I didn't know they re-released it. Is it actually like Prima that re-released it?
Well, I think it's an unfortunate kind of re-release. It's a hardcover. I think it's like 7, 8, and 9 in one like set.
Oh, it's a big book.
And I think it's sold out. So I think you have to spend a lot of money on it now. I considered back in the day getting it. I think it's only a few years old, but no, it's like I already have a guide, and I love strategy guides. I can look through those. They explain systems, there's maps, it's great. But I just go to Play Online to use this one. I just enter keyword Stella 6, and now I know specifically where to get that Stellazio that I desperately need for this game. Curse you, Play Online. And just a couple weird things before we actually get into the game. You can play blackjack in this game if you want.
Yes, you can.
If you're into gambling, if you're into cards, golly, we got you.
It is the ultimate, because you have to get to the ending, the end sequence to initiate being able to play it. So it is the ultimate. You just PB'd in a speed run. You just got a new personal best, your new fastest time. You now get to play blackjack until you lose all your money, and you realize that gambling's bullshit.
Yeah,
like wow,
speed run going broke pretty quick.
Oh yeah. Wow, the dealer seems to get 21 a lot. Holy shit.
Yeah, an American programmer inserted this into the game. Ito decided to keep it, but hid it behind a complicated code.
Yes.
So that's something you can't get to the end of the game, though. And there's also a 2-player mode in this game. Did you know that?
Yes, I did. One of the first times back when I played it as a kid, I had a friend who said, yeah, do you want to co-op through Final Fantasy 9? I was like, what? Probably one of the most unknown of co-ops you can do in a video game. But yeah, you can have it to where like each person controls like 2 different characters in a battle system. So
yeah, that's mostly what it is. It's just kind of taking turns with characters.
Yeah.
I've heard from some people, I've read some message boards, people like it's great if you find the right person and you want to sit by each other for 30 hours.
Yeah,
you sure can do this.
Honestly, I wish more had done that. Like, we make fun of it a little bit. Like, it's not like terribly complicated. It's not inherently that different from just like passing the controller off to the other person. But it's cool that like does say like, hey, all right, I'll control Zidane and Steiner. You control Vivi and Garnett, and we'll kind of like call out stuff to each other. Almost like a mini FF14, I guess, almost in a way. Of like getting to do like little raid parties and whatnot. I think it was like a cool way, because I'm always a big fan of anytime you can take a single player game and make it a multiplayer experience. I think that's really cool. So
rapid fire numbers. 300 people made this game. There's 180 different battle backgrounds, 200 different monsters, 70-ish characters and summons, 100 different weapons, 130 different items, 200 inhabitants in this world, and 50 side characters were all numbers I was able to find for this big game.
How did they do it? How did this get made in a year? That's incredible. Sorry, I'm just going to keep going back to that. How did games this size get made in like a year back in the day?
The bigger the game gets, the more people it takes. Just listening to George R.R. Martin talk about writing books, he's like, I can just write anything. No one can stop me. It's impossible. And
okay, I know we said we weren't going to talk about Elden Ring anymore, but George R.R. Martin, who was like one of the primary writers for that game, go back and play that game. His initials are GRRM, and notice that every single character in that game either starts with G, R, or M. I'm just going to leave it at that. Anybody listen to this podcast, go look at all the characters in that game. They all start with those 3 letters going on.
Renala, Ronnie, Godric, Godfrey,
Radon,
Godwin,
Radagon,
Marika, Melina.
Yep.
Yeah.
Godric.
I like that he came out and he's like, no, I didn't do anything like that.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, we see it. It's okay. It's okay to admit you put your initials in there a little bit.
It's an Easter egg.
So how does this game open up, Spike?
This game opens up with an initial little flashback sequence, a bad dream with Garnet, and eventually you're thrown right into the theater ship, this beautiful, wide, sweeping arc of the majestic theater ship. Generally, your aircraft, not something you see till later in the game, flying over Alexandria, as they are all getting ready for a festival celebrating the play that the theater crew is going to bring there. And you see Zidane, you zoom in, and you engage in your first battle that they throw you right into the thick of it for. And it's they had really perfected the craft of great storytelling within their FMVs. That you couldn't believe we're already that far along in late 90s, early 2000s gameplay, where there's so many legitimately beautiful shots. The cinematography in this game in the FMVs is so good. And eventually you go later on in the game, you get amazing like chase sequences where they tell a great story with, running out of the evil forest and being chased by Black Waltz number 3 and Vivi Kamehamehas his ass in the face. It's really cool stuff they're able to do with it. And they establish it beautifully in this opening bit. How they go around, just kind of show you the city you're looking out on before it gets taken down with destruction.
That's something that is a very big deal for PlayStation 1 games in particular for the Final Fantasy series. Just the FMVs were one of the selling points, and you can definitely tell that they were making a feature film around this time because these sequences are absolutely stunning. The Black Waltz chase that happens later, I remember being terrified. And then Vivi's he's like, not today, motherfucker. And then he pulls his Glock out and he shoots him. And I was blown away. But
Goosebumps. Goosebumps. I've seen that cutscene 50 times in my life, probably. And there was one day I was doing a speed run. It was garbage. It was a bad run. And I was like, I'm just going to watch this FMV chat. And we just watched it. And we all in chat were just like, goosebumps all over me, dude. Like they were so good. They were so good at their storytelling within those little movies that are basically just inserted into the game.
Yeah. They were able to also with these movies kind of put more emotion into them.
Yes.
You go back to FF7 and they don't look too great.
No, they're figuring it out. Yeah.
Yeah. They're able to, I mean, and granted, this is kind of theatrical in that when Steiner's upset, his entire face melts into sadness and Steiner doesn't know how to hide emotions too well, which is one of the many reasons I love him. But
love Steiner.
No, it's such a great start to this game. It brings in the fantasy hard, and it's always a weird thing, the opening cinematic, where you have to kind of show the themes, show what's going on. It's Dagger on a boat looking lost and scared, and we don't know who she is. And then all of a sudden, big airships. We see Steiner's sword, and he's a knight. And they're like, sorry, you sci-fi nerds, we're going back.
Yeah.
We're taking this one back. But we're introduced to our first character, Zidane. We've talked about him a little bit. Big jokester, total flirt. He is a 16-year-old in this game. Something that always happens in these games is that they're younger than I think in my head.
They're all 16, 17. Yeah, every single one of them. Yeah.
If you're the grizzled old man, you're 33.
Yes.
I am currently the grizzled old man.
I'm older than Sid. Shit.
I'm Captain Bosch. But yeah, Zidane is a character who's very good at hiding what's kind of going on the inside. He's always there for his homies. He'll always step up for you. Yes. And even someone like Steiner, he has his back. And I don't know, he's a little controversial these days because he's a little aggressive with the women.
Oh, he definitely is. Yes, there are definitely some aspects that did not age super, super well. The soft sequence will always stick out. Yep.
Yeah. I didn't mean to grab your butt. It's
I'm sorry. It's...
You made a comment on it right away, Zidane.
Ooh, soft.
Sakaguchi in an interview says, while laughing, Zidane is the kind of guy who likes to grab women's butts. And that's the kind of guy that gets thrown out of restaurants.
Yep.
But it was a slightly different time. I understand that he is a bit of a rapscallion, and I don't mind seeing him throw himself and flirt with every woman. That's funny. But I don't know if they would get away with some of this as much today.
Yeah. He's definitely,
Something else this game does that's weird is, like, Zidane is a tail, and it's just not a thing.
Yep. No one talks about it. I guess, like, when as a kid, we want that to mean more, probably just because, like, I watch Dragon Ball Z and everything. But, like, also, again, you are in this fantasy world that, like, if he's placed in FF7 or 8, there's probably a little more of a question of, like, the fuck? Why do you have a tail? Like, why is but in like FF9, it's like, okay, you got Vivi, the little black mage running around, Aiko's got her big ears and everything, whatever Amaranth is. Freya's a giant rat, that can jump 80 stories high. It's just like, and he's a dude with a tail. It is what it is.
And you know what's weird? Amaranth is one of the only 2 human characters that's on your party. Dagger and Aiko are technically classified as summoners, like a separate race with horns. So Zidane is a genome, and Vivi's a black mage. There's no comment that he just has little yellow eyes, little balls of light for his eyes and no face. But there's also hippo people that are horribly not animated, and they're nightmare fuel. Those big open eyes and just open mouth. A lot of just crazy different races in this, but yeah, we open up a little boss battle here. It's the play, which, I haven't played Final Fantasy VI, but I know that the play is like an iconic moment in the series. And this is very Shakespearean in a lot of ways as well.
Oh, yeah.
But they're here for Queen Braun's birthday. She is a 39-year-old woman, I found.
So she's ancient.
She's super old.
Yeah.
She might use clown makeup too much. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. Again, like, it's Zidane's tail. It's just like, that's just what she looks like. It is what it is.
Yeah. She's being manipulated by an artificial monkey boy I put down. We'll learn more about that later. Yeah, we get introduced to a lot of our characters here. The Tantalus group, Zidane is with Baku. Kind of like Yondu is the vibes I get from him.
Yeah.
The hard,
it's actually perfect.
The hard father figure.
Yep.
Who loves you. Blank and Marcus, classic side characters. Cinna looks like a cinnamon shaker, which always bothered me.
Yep. I can see that. And his attacks suck in comparison to the others. Don't know why. Yeah, he's kind of the butt of a lot of the jokes.
And it's cool, though, that they get full battle models. That's always someone who's wielding a Game Shark back in the day. I'm like, ooh, well, they can be a part of my party then. Mm-hmm. And then, there's also Zanero and Bonero, 2 bovine people with scissor hands, because because we can.
Because
and
we
there's also Ruby as well. But there's a play going on. The point, though, is we're kidnapping Garnet. We're going to steal her out of here. What are your thoughts on Garnet as a character, Spike?
My thoughts on Garnet as a character, man, oh man. I'm trying to think of the last time I really analyzed this story. Is that I think at the end of the day, she was a character I remember playing it as a kid and just feeling bad for her constantly. That she's always out there trying to do the right thing, has obviously been extremely sheltered all this time and had her mind warped by who she's just had to be around this whole time. But I just always remember feeling bad for her, honestly, more than anything else. Cause so many Final Fantasy stories were back then, it is just tragic. Entire civilizations getting blown the hell up constantly. She just becomes the new queen, halfway through the story here. And then they blow up all of Alexandria and she has to live with that, in a way, PTSD of sorts, and internalizes that to where she can't talk for a long chunk of the video game. For many hours after that, she loses her voice. She isn't able to focus anymore. And that hit me as a kid. That it's no longer, she wasn't just one of the video game characters I was controlling. It was something really bad was happening to her constantly there. And her having to accept that even if she knows her mother has a lot of selfish tendencies, as obviously has her greed for power, even tries to kill her, she's still trying to save her mother from whatever happened or whatever warped her own mind. And at the end of the day, it's met with failure, and it was always going to be. She was never going to be able to save her mother, her foster mother in a way almost here. So I guess that's my main analysis of her. I love her sequence of eventually overcoming this depression, this PTSD, whatever it is. The sequence where she cuts off her own hair. She says, "I am a new person. It is time to grow up and it's time to come together, work with Zidane and save the world." I think it's cool.
And classically, all you do is grab your nearest knife and just one snip and your hair falls perfectly.
Yep. I was like, man, it went through it like butter. My God. How sharp is that knife? Jesus Christ.
Factually, I don't agree, but I buy the cutscene, and yes, I'm there for it. Garnet is another character who doesn't know her true origins, just like Zidane.
Yep.
The theme of identity is going to run deep through here, but she is a princess who doesn't know basic world concepts, and 16 years old as well. She's not a grizzled ancient at the age of 30.
Right.
She is still a young character that we love. And I'm going to take the layup here. Our character, Vivi.
Oh.
Vivi is the most important character, in my opinion, in this game. The heart of the story, the central growth that is apparent, somebody that you love, somebody that you immediately look out for and sympathize with. They're your little brother. They're your best friend. I love how Steiner immediately, he's just like, fuck all of this. And Vivi's like, but wait. And he's like, what can I do for you, Vivi? I'm sorry there, bud. Can I get you something?
I know.
You need a cup of tea, Vivi?
So cute.
And I mean, Vivi has just got a weird situation here. Yeah. 9 in appearance, less than 1 year old in actuality, which strange thing to comprehend.
Immediately right out the womb, like, oh.
Imagine getting raised by only Qs or Qs, however you say them.
Yeah.
Yep. Which his father was raising him to eat him. His grandfather, Quan, was like, I'm going to eat this kid once he's big enough. But
oh, you're terrified.
Father issues.
Sure.
We've been there.
Yeah. We're all dealing with a little different father issues growing up. My God.
Yeah. But no, Vivi is great. And our third character that doesn't know their origins and is searching for kind of a sense of home. Design, he's a classic black mage. He is quintessential, but shrink him down, make him cute, and make him not know how to get around in the world. Becomes a little bit of the narrator, and like I said, beloved by all. Vivi has bought a ticket to the play. Turns out he's been scammed because this kid has never been in a city before. Immediately someone takes advantage of him. Fuck big cities, I suppose. But he does go play jump rope, so that's great.
Golly, did you play jump rope when you played it?
No, it's one of those situations where I heard about it, and it's like I already did the Lulu lightning thing. I'm not gonna. Yeah, I don't got time for this shit.
Square didn't give a shit, dude. They put these mini games into it, and they say, "Oh, yeah." So you're like, "Oh, I'll do jump rope. Oh, I got like 100. Is that good?" No, you need 1,000 jump ropes to get like the main thing in that game off of that mini game. Yeah, it's right up there. Same thing as like 100 lightning bolt dodges and FF10. Ridiculous mini game.
I feel like they're fucking with us.
Oh yeah. Why would you put it in 1,000?
At least with the lightning. All right, we're going to get Lulu's best weapon. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. With the jump roping, after 300 jumps, which sucks, gets you a Tiger Racket card, which the card game sucks. But
yes,
then
it does.
At 700 jumps, you get the King of Jump Rope, which is just like a title that doesn't have any effect on gameplay. Are you obsessed with achievements? Because fuck you. And you can. I mean, you can sit there and do that. It's like Breath of the Wild.
You want to get 900 Korok seeds? Here's what we're going to give you. A golden piece of shit. That's all you're getting for it.
I will comfortably draw the line. And especially now, I'm just like, I'm not going to jump rope one time. Because, I mean, all of the rewards are cards and the jump roping. And we haven't talked about the card game yet. We'll talk about that maybe in a little bit. But not a big fan. He makes friends with Puck, who is a prince for the rat people, the Burmesians, but we don't know that till later. And we see our first Moogles, which is kind of exciting. Stiltskin is, I think, a great design for a Moogle. He is kind of the legendary Moogle. He's got a hiking backpack and a bandana. And even I think the most badass Moogle would just be like cute and I want to pick him up. But he might get upset with that. They're going to be our tutors, save points, and traveling merchants, as well as this weird mini game with Mognet we mentioned briefly. Yeah. It'd be like if a UPS driver just asked us to drop his packages off around town.
Why am I doing that?
I put down that Stiltskin was also in Kingdom Hearts. Do you know where he is in Kingdom Hearts? I think he's maybe in the final world that never was, maybe.
Oh, is Stiltskin there? Oh, I mean, I know Moogles are vendors in the Kingdom Hearts games, but is Stiltskin in there? If he is, I don't remember. Maybe he's in one of the Final Fantasies.
Next time you play through Kingdom Hearts, you'll see him over there for sure. Yeah, there's always weird crossovers with these games, as well as there's a purple striped Moogle, Artemisian. She is the future Moogle star of Crystal Chronicles, which I don't remember that at all. I've only beat that one once, though, not nearly 100 times. We also meet another beloved character. I'd say probably my second favorite character with Adelbert Steiner. Steiner's great. He is probably the character that is just on the surface level showing the most change. He is straight-laced, no nonsense, very much just the yes man for the queen.
Yep.
She's always right. I don't want to say this kind of like some aspects of America, but he was born March of 1766, which is funny to me that there's just fucking also birthdays and years for this. So I look at my outline sometimes and I worry about myself and how much is on here, but important design notes. He wears armor with no socks.
Yeah. Like, that has got to hurt. Holy shit.
He's just all blisters down there. His arms are exposed. He does not wear a long sleeve t-shirt. He just kind of covers up most of his arms. Whatever. But when he goes into trance, he does get full armor, which is, I guess, trance, you just grow armor sometimes too.
Yeah, that's everybody gets different amounts. Like Vivi's hat gets real pointy.
I love it.
Yeah, Steiner just covers. Steiner puts on socks and a long sleeve t-shirt and says, "Let's go, bitch."
So, is there a lot that happens in this first section of the game for speedrun tech, or is it kind of just click through the dialogue, get through? Because a lot of these battles are already like scripted.
Yeah, so like there is a lot of just like you're laying out initial concepts for how. Like stuff that's going to be prevalent all throughout the run. Obviously, you're not in super big danger of dying in this opening sequence, but you're primarily learning about how you can effectively utilize within the system ATB wait. You would think we would play on active the entire time. It's like, oh, just everything's constantly moving. You actually play in wait, because if you do that, when you're in a sub-menu, no one's bars fills up. That means if you make someone attack, I'm going to make Zidane attack. And then while Zidane is doing his attack, obviously his bar is full until that attack is done, then it goes back to empty. While he's doing his attack, I go into a sub-menu with Vivi. So Zidane's isn't going down, but nobody else's is moving either. So then Zidane is fast enough to where he can attack. I go out of the menu as soon as Zidane's attack finishes, and then his fills back up before the enemy gets to do anything. I say Zidane, he's honestly the most common example of that, but it can basically make it to where you get 2 turns for the price of 1 on your opponent. And at the low levels you end up doing the speed run at, that can make all the difference to say, okay, I need like 5 turns to kill the boss. And that just cut out one of the 4 retaliations that they were going to have on me. So that's ATB wait is kind of one of the big techniques you learn in speedrunning FF9.
Yeah, I had no idea that that's kind of the way the system balances itself out. When you're in a sub-menu, everything freezes. So you let a character do their action, and you sit there in the sub-menu, wait till they're done, and then kind of resume.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you pull yourself out of it, and you're not really losing any ground right there, because you're having to wait for their attack to finish up anyways. Because if you just let all the bars go, it's going to end up basically just being a turn-based system. It's just you'll go, and then the boss will go, and then you'll go, and then the boss will go. This is to make it to where I can get more actions for the price of 1, effectively. So it's actually, you would think there's not a lot going on in the combat sequences. There's actually a lot. You're constantly doing something in the fight to make sure you're set up to get that next attack off. Because since we are so level, that next attack might kill us, especially if it's like some big AoE or some shit that this game loves to throw at you. So.
Yeah. And feel free to call out as we talk if there's anything specific battle-wise that's going on for speedrun tech. Yeah, because I know that very quickly it becomes apparent that stealing is going to be an integral part for the gameplay, especially if you're taking your time with it. But for speedrunning, you probably know, like, I need to grab this. Is stealing a big part?
Yeah, stealing is. I think stealing is kind of gone. One thing that's great about Final Fantasy IX, because it is such a complicated speedrun to route, there's so many different little things that, like, stealing has gone through so many different phases of how important it is to the run. Because obviously Zidane and all the other thieves you get to start with, everybody on the theater ship. The very first fight where you fight Baku and he's got the big dragon head on and everything, you can steal Zidane's next strongest weapon from him 10 seconds into the run. You can steal the Mage Masher from him. And all of a sudden, you're just twice as strong for the first, like, hour of the run. So that's like an integral steal you can get right there. There's lots of other places where you know you have one extra turn to work with. So when instead of Zidane just sitting there and waiting, you steal it, you fit in one quick steal attempt. See if you can find something that either is going to be better gear for one of your partners or sell it off later. You can get one of his strongest weapons in the game that you can use for the end of it from like a, 3/4 of the way through the game boss. You can steal the Oracle Con. There's lots of little places where stealing is very, very important. And it kind of goes back to what you're talking about, where because all the characters have their own super defined roles for how they work in the fight, Vivi's, anything that has any elemental weakness, you use one of your Fyragas, Blizzagas, Thundagas, and all of a sudden, like, that's going to do the big, massive damage. But he's also a glass cannon, so how do you protect him maybe with the other characters up to that point? Steiner's just all physical damage, so we got to hit him with Berserk and make him just attack over and over again in certain fights. Zidane, stealing is such an important thing on top of also dealing damage. It's very interesting in that regard, so...
Is there a lot of manipulation with RNG? Is it possible to like kind of guarantee things happen easier for you, like with stealing or with anything?
It's actually not. A lot of people will tell you it's actually incredible for these games that you would think are pretty much known for like RNG, random number generation, that's going in all of them. Like you figure like, oh, if someone came and speed ran Final Fantasy VII for you right now, there's probably a big wide range of time it could get right there. It's actually not. You go ask Zeal, the current world record holder for that game, he'll get probably within 10 minutes of his personal best every single time. It's actually a very consistent game. There's a lot of ways to know exactly what's going to happen, yada, yada, yada. There are other series out there like Fire Emblem where they're RNG manipulating everything. FF9, there is nothing you can do. You are going into every fight and it is a casino. It is probably the most complicated speedrun to understand all the different tech for, all the different menus you have to do because there's 600 different setups. That's completely different. You go into every single fight, but also the one where you can feel the most, I guess a little bit cheated out of getting a good time because the RNG can be brutal sometimes in this games. You talked about how slow like the battle camera is when you get an encounter and you go in. Every time you get a random encounter in this game, you just lose automatically between 30 seconds and a minute, which might not sound like that much in the course of a 9-hour run, but do that 40, 50 times. The range on it compared to someone who gets maybe 40 random encounters compared to 70, that's rough. There's no way to manipulate the bosses. You just protect against them as well as you can because you might go in, they might use the one little single target spell that doesn't really do anything, a status effect they were protected against, could use some big AoE and blow up your entire party and the run's over. You have no way of really controlling for that. You just have to you have to consistently consider all the possibilities going into the next turn. Am I rushing damage? Am I protecting against something? Oh no, one of my characters died. Am I going to try to re-raise them? Some of them, I need them to survive this battle because if they don't, they miss out on a shitload of AP and they're not going to learn these like 3 skills for later in the game that I need these for in order to get over the hump. So it's a lot.
It sounds like a headache.
Oh, it's a lot. Oh my God.
Yeah. I remember watching Final Fantasy VII speedruns and watching them just count steps to avoid things. And I don't know what's worse, having to count every step you take or just dealing with random encounters. At least everyone else is dealing with them. But there's nothing worse than a run where you just get slapped by RNG.
Yep.
Here in Alexandria, though, we have our play going on. One of the iconic moments that you get in these Final Fantasy games, our hero meets the heroine, and he's there to kidnap her, and she runs up to him and says, "Please kidnap me." And
I would like you to kidnap me. This would be great. And he's like, oh.
He drops to a knee, and he says, "I promise I will kidnap you."
It's a great proposal.
Yeah, it's really great. Steiner is joining here as well. He bumbles his way into the group. They have a funny situation on stage where they're all part of the play briefly before the queen gets upset. Vivi winds up. He's chased on there as well because they found his fake ticket. And despite him getting into the play, he is now getting chased and he winds up on stage. There is no bouncers or security.
Right.
If Vivi got on stage, you don't have a bouncer.
There ain't no bouncer. I guess we went to go see The Lion King last night. I guess there really wasn't a bouncer to prevent me from jumping up on stage. Like, Mufasa, no.
No, not again. I knew this was going to happen. But also the queen kind of freaks out. They're going to escape here, and she knows her daughter's on the ship, and she's like, send a bomb and harpoon the fuck out of it.
She blows up the ship, and she's like, hell yeah. I'm like, bitch, your daughter was on that ship. Was this your goal? Definitely one of those moments that didn't make sense plot-wise.
It's your daughter.
It's your daughter.
But
it's not the one you're trying to quote-unquote save or at least use, you know? Can't use her.
You'll find out. You'll find out later she doesn't, she's not concerned with Garnet, though. It's Garnet's pendant she's wearing. Her royal pendant is one of the 4 pieces of Alexander, and she needs to keep it there. We mentioned Adelbert Steiner. He's 33 years old, so he's like practically a great-grandpa in this world. He's ancient. Yeah, he's definitely a sylph, a Steiner I'd like to fuck. Yeah. He's showing so much ankle. I don't know what else I'm going to do about this.
I can't believe he doesn't wear socks. I never really thought about that. That must fucking hurt. Sorry, go ahead.
It looks weird. It does. Once you notice these things, you can't go back. I spent 5 seconds looking at Quina. I'm like, I get it. It doesn't make sense. But I look at Steiner. It's like, wait a second. There might be something here.
Quina's got an 8-foot tongue, but you're not wearing socks. What the fuck?
I can get past Quina's tongue. It's Quina's outfit that really throws me for a loop.
I'm sorry. Shardy turned on now? Like, what's going on?
I mean, I guess style is just wearing what you like and not giving a fuck. So Quina really doesn't care. Right. But that is going to bring us to the end of this episode. We're going to talk a little bit more about Final Fantasy IX. We're going to move on to the next one. But thanks for tuning in for Raw Dogs number 75, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, Spike. We're going to continue talking about some of the story, but if our listeners wanted to find you, if they don't know who you are, where can they locate you?
They can find me over on twitch.tv/Spike Vegeta. We like to play video games, as you can hear that I talk about. I like to speedrun RPGs like Final Fantasy IX, Chrono Cross, the Kingdom Hearts series, and a bunch of other platformers like the Mario games, the Donkey Kong games, Rayman, all sorts of other stuff, and play randomizers and whatnot. I do a lot of things. You can also follow me on YouTube, same channel and whatnot. But yeah.
Are there? I guess I haven't noticed. Are there Final Fantasy randomizers? I haven't really looked into it too much.
Yeah, there are. I actually have not really played any Final Fantasy randomizers. Like FF9's got one. It's a little less developed because obviously they're like massive games that would take a while to play through each time. But like, there's like gear randomizer. You could end up teaching like Steiner could use Meteor and shit, stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty fun. But we're Hair of the Dogcast. You can find us on Twitter and Facebook. We're on Twitter at Hot Dogcast, Facebook, Instagram, Hair of the Dogcast. If you want access to these episodes early, higher bit rate, all the good stuff, access to our Discord, you can find us on patreon.com/Hair of the Dogcast. For as low as $3 a month, get access to like 30 hours of exclusive content, something like that. But thanks for tuning in. We have a lot more Final Fantasy IX to discuss next time. So thanks again, Spike. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed part 1 of our Final Fantasy IX discussion. Spike and I have recorded part 2 already, and it is available exclusively to our Patreon supporters. For access to this right away, as well as episodes on Castlevania Symphony of the Night, Persona 5, and over 30 hours of exclusive podcasts, including movie discussions, for all of it, it only takes supporting at the $3 tier on patreon.com/Hair of the Dogcast. We would love it if you came and joined us there and joined our Discord. We have a lot of discussions and a lot of great exclusive content for our Patreon supporters. We appreciate you listening. Tell your friends, and thank you for coming on this journey with us. So take care of yourselves, and we will see you next time.